You remember August 2021? It was probably 8 months into vaccines being available for COVID-19. Governor J.B. Pritzker took to a podium in Chicago and announced that there were going to be vaccine or testing mandates for a variety of different industries, from the medical industry to education. And in education in particular, there were mandates for K through 12 teachers and mandates for daycare operators to show their vaccine status or to test weekly. There were also vaccine and testing requirements the governor put into place back in August of 2021 through an executive order, not through state law, that required college professors and staff and college students in Illinois to either prove their vaccine status against COVID-19 or to test weekly. So we've had that in place all the way up until yesterday. Governor J.B. Pritzker announcing that no longer is there going to be vaccine mandates for higher ed. However, vaccine mandates continue for K through 12 staff. So the governor announcing this while he was out over in Maine attending a National Governors Association conference. And he says that it's to ensure that governments resume normal operations. And you look at a variety of different things this does. It says vaccine mandates for higher education employees and students and emergency medical service providers will not be reissued, and goes into even more detail with this modified order that the teachers union at K through 12 schools supports. You even have a variety of other industries reacting to it, the medical industry and so on. So that was announced yesterday, that new modified orders, still K through 12, teachers and staff have to either prove their vaccine status or test regularly. In the medical industry, there's different layers for who has to test and who doesn't have to test. And this, again, is coming directly from the governor's office and in their announcement. Unvaccinated staff at hospitals and other healthcare facilities that are certified by CMS will now be required to test weekly only if located in areas of high community level transmission. Nursing home staff not vaccinated in moderate community level transmission will only have to test once a week, twice a week if it's a high level transmission area. So still some vaccine mandates in some areas, but for higher education staff and students, they apparently won't have to, according to the governor's most recent modified order, they won't have to prove their vaccine status or test. And interestingly enough, Attorney Thomas DeVore, who's also the Republican candidate for Attorney General in the November election, he had sued the governor and about 10 or 11 different public universities and community colleges across the state on behalf of staff and students, challenging this particular vaccine mandate or testing requirement. So I reached out to him yesterday, and after he reviewed the executive order, this is some of what he had to say in direct reaction to Governor J.B. Pritzker's modified orders for K through 12, not K through 12 for higher education, students and staff that Attorney Thomas DeVore was representing in court. So here is Attorney DeVore.
Well, I see the governor put out a modified order. I've read it on my phone, and to the best I can tell, it looks like he is rescinding that part of a prior executive order that requires vaccination or testing in our secondary education and colleges. So it didn't change it for, K through 12, et cetera. And this is likely a result, Greg, of, I didn't really make it public, but on June 22nd in Madison County, Illinois, I sued about 11 colleges across the state on behalf of my clients, arguing that the vaccination and testing policy was unlawful. And, these institutions were all relying upon the governor's executive authority as the basis for forcing vaccination and testing on these teachers as well as these students. And so, not that long ago, the 4th Appellate District said that the governor's executive authority without lawfully adopted administrative rules was not a basis to require any of this. So, it's my opinion that given that these colleges were in a position where they had to answer our lawsuit within the next week or two, the governor issued this modified executive order to try to render our lawsuit moot. So there's no facts and science to support any of what he just did. It's a way to get these colleges out of the hot box where they were going to have to answer this lawsuit. So to that extent, I'm pleased that my clients and the rest of the kids in college, as well as the educators, are no longer under this vaccination or test policy. I'm grateful for that, but it's sad that it took another lawsuit to accomplish that.
So again, this is Attorney Thomas DeVore, the attorney that's been filing lawsuits against COVID-19 mandates for well over almost 2 years now? I think you had that lawsuit on July 4th of 2020 in a Southern Illinois county court. That really kind of propelled a lot of other lawsuits that have been out there. And listen, the governor's orders have been challenged across the board, from limiting restaurants having in-person dining to even the, again, most recent lawsuit that Attorney DeVore was talking about there, challenging COVID-19 vaccine and testing mandates for college students and staff. But again, that was lifted yesterday. So no longer is there a governor edict to require college staff and students to do COVID-19 vaccines or to test regularly. Now, I did reach out to several of the colleges that are listed as defendants in DeVore's case, and I didn't hear back from most that I reached out to. I did have one college reach out, and on background, they said they weren't. This spokesperson was not familiar with the lawsuit, so they had to go back and try to get more information about it. And even if it was a pending lawsuit, still, the lawsuit hasn't been dropped yet, from my understanding. But it's expected it could be because of the governor's actions. But you can't talk about pending lawsuits in some cases, especially if you're working for a media relations office within a taxing body. So the K through 12 mandate still is in place, and that's another lawsuit that Attorney Thomas DeVore says is still pending.
Oh yeah, there's still cases pending in Sangamon County on the K through 12 for the educators, at least under the vaccination and testing policy. And again, there is some suggestion out of the 4th Appellate District that that's a workplace rule versus a public health issue. We're still fighting about that, but that's a different issue altogether, because that K through 12 stuff, Greg, what's important for people to understand is that the appellate court was basing that on the inherent authority of the school district through its legislative delegation to be able to do those things. And these are minor children, the in-parent, whatever that Latin phrase is, that they can step in the shoes of the parents. But it's different for these colleges, and so they weren't going to be able to rely on that same information. So there's nothing that's changed in the medical community that warrants the governor, rescinding this vaccination and testing for, higher education, but not in these other places. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So, there only seems the reason that he's doing it to try to get these colleges out of having to be involved in this lawsuit.
Again, Attorney Thomas DeVore reacting to some of the things he thinks is the reason why the governor yesterday announced, he didn't hold a news conference or anything, just sent out a news announcement about modified executive orders dropping the requirement for higher ed staff and students to get vaccinated. So what else does Attorney DeVore think about this? He shares that with me when I chatted with him yesterday.
Well, I think it's pertinent about it is we're coming into the election cycle. And so, politics is playing an even more significant role in all of these things that the governor's doing than they did for the last 2 years. So, he's making these decisions and trying to grandstand that it somehow or another is driven in the facts and science. And I would challenge the governor to show the people any facts and science that promote this modified executive order. There isn't any. It's pure politics. And he didn't want to see these colleges lose another lawsuit like he's lost in the past.
Now, the governor's statement on Wednesday did indeed say something to the effect of school and daycare age children have much lower rates of vaccination than the general public and have less ability to consistently and safely mask. In addition, outbreaks at schools threaten the ability to continue with in-person learning and the developmental benefits that provides. So that's apparently the governor's rationale between lifting the COVID-19 vaccine mandate or testing for higher ed while keeping it in place for K through 12 staff. So we'll be continuing to watch that. And it's interesting to note also that the governor's had executive orders rolling month after month, modifying them month after month since April of 2020.